Hello and welcome to another edition of Daily Drinkers Podcast. With you, as always, the two most dependable people I know. One of them being myself, Rocky. And I'm hooked on these Topo Chicos, hard seltzers. Pretty good.
Well, I'm the other dependable host of this, Marbles, and today I'm drinking
Nitro Brew from Guinness.
no White Claw Surge.
Third.
Yeah, it's the higher alcohol 8% instead of the other Trulies that I got.
Surge went bankrupt in 2000,
Surge came back though.
but it didn't.
You can't
The
stop
only cans
Surge.
you can make. You can. Male impotency can stop Surge.
You can still get
I
those
don't
on Amazon, can't you?
Yeah, but I don't know how valid their expiration date is. I don't know why we used to drink it. If I remember correctly, it didn't taste all that great either.
Surge Soda is back. Surge.com. Yeah, you could surge up.
Tasted like a whack Mountain Dew.
I don't remember drinking it. I remember seeing it. I don't remember if I ever drank it or not.
Had like a weird yellowish, like picture the color of a pear, but puree it, and that was like the color of the drink, if I
I,
remember correctly.
I
It was like a
mean,
weird color.
it's a weird green. Available flavors: Surge. Available sizes: 16 ounces. Yeah, it's oh, it says caffeine content. Caffeine content: 68 milligrams. So,
A
uh,
little dangerous.
I was gonna tell you that the got the invitation for the Black Panther skull.
What?
Yeah, for the
The
like the
Australian dude?
yeah, there's a Black
Huh.
Panther one. Cool looking.
Probably $600.
They're making 70. Uh, let's see.
I'm gonna guess right now, 639.
Nah, 400 or 399 USD.
Well, you need to sign up for them, America. I don't even know who the guy is. He doesn't sponsor us, but he makes good with stuff.
It makes cool looking stuff. But yeah, I got the early invitation to buy it. Basically,
Nice.
you get like a 15-minute head start because it's password protected, and then they send you the password, and then you get 15 minutes before it's open to anybody.
That's cool.
So, I'm like, dang, these things are really cool though.
More nonsense to buy.
Yeah, I gotta just not spend so much money this month.
Shenanigans. You can spend a lot of money all the months.
Um, yeah, I need to spend less so I can make better use of my money.
Shenanigans. You're an adult. You make money. You spend money. It's a
Um,
perk of being an adult.
it is, but if I want to make any big purchases, I need to not spend money.
Like a baby cradle.
No, not that.
Yes.
Not yet.
And a car and a house.
House is the big ticket item that I'm trying to save for. But we'll see. We'll see if that happens, given the housing prices out here. I mean, really, the housing
Or
prices everywhere are high in general. For each like relative area, they're high. But
yes.
California is just stupid. Um, I think I told you that a house down the street from my mom's is up for like 799,000, and it looks like they did a half-ass job like fixing up the inside. She said like they put in recessed lighting, but like they didn't even like plaster all the way around it. There's like gaps and like it's all ceiling's all lumpy, but they're selling that thing for almost $800,000.
They'll probably sell it for 775 because somebody will buy it.
Yeah. So
That's silly.
I'm like that's stupid. But a lot of people that are buying up houses aren't even like individuals or families. They're like businesses.
Hmm.
Um, that are trying to buy up property so that way they can either turn it into a business, which I saw out there in Paso Robles. There's this I forget what the company is, like the type of company it's called, but they bought some houses and they basically turned them into like timeshares. So they allow individuals or families to buy an eighth of the house and share the cost among like eight different parties. And then
That's
they can stay at that house during certain times, like assigned times of the year. They're allowed to stay there. So it's basically turning a single family home into a timeshare amongst eight families.
that's silly.
And like people in the neighborhood that this company's doing it in are pissed off because they're like you're yeah, you're just turning like people's neighbors, like the home next door to somebody, into like a timeshare. And they're like, we don't want timeshares in our neighborhood.
Nobody wants a timeshare. I want to know, well, relative continuity, who's going to be in my neighborhood at any given time.
Yeah. And now you're just gonna get random people showing up at different times of the year, and you don't know who they are, and they'll be there for a bit, and then they'll leave. You don't know if they're gonna trash the place or whatever because they're using it as a, basically a hotel
Yeah.
for so many weeks or months out of the year. Um, but it's weird that they're like divvying up the cost of the house plus like extra interest or whatever on top, so that way they make a profit off of it. But they're divvying it up like eight ways. And I'm like, I do not want to share a single family home size property amongst eight different like groups. Even if
Nope.
you're not going to be there at the same time, I still don't want to do that because you don't know how the other people are going to leave it, and it's like you can't live there year round, so you're using it as what, like a vacation home, basically.
And then who gets dibs on what week for vacation?
Yeah, it's a weird concept, and also like they're what they're trying to do is get around the laws that certain communities have about timeshares by like not calling it a timeshare, but essentially it just is a timeshare. So I'm like, cool. So you got investment companies are buying up homes. There's a housing shortage as it is, and then housing prices for the homes that are available are ridiculous. So I'm waiting for it to crash.
And then go buy your $1 million house for 200,000.
Yep. And then all the money we saved buying the house cheap, you get to put into the house as like doing whatever upgrades you want to it. It's better than buying $1 million home and that you can't upgrade because you're broke. Isn't that called being like house broke? You own a home, but you're essentially
You
poor.
can't do anything with it. You're just living in it.
You could live in it, but you're like living
You gotta
off
hope
of,
nothing goes wrong for 20 years.
yeah, because you are broke. All your money's tied up in your house. Yeah, I don't want that. So it'd be nice if the market crashes and then houses become a lot cheaper, and you could go in there, pick one up, and then if a house is, let's say, 700,000 now and it drops down to 400 or 500,000, that's 300,000 that you don't need to get in a loan.
Or you wait for the next up and coming neighborhood that's just on the outskirts of a nice town and you buy there before it gets popular,
Yeah,
and then boom, instant equity.
you could do that. The biggest problem with doing that is work situation. So,
You're gonna be self-employed, making millions of dollars, so it's fine.
I mean, yeah, if I could do that or get a work from home situation that pays a lot and I could just move somewhere cheap into a neighborhood that's cheap, then yeah, I don't care about commute because I don't need a commute.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like being out here in California and saying like, oh, I'm gonna get a house in like Riverside, but I work in L.A.
Except Riverside's now like 700,000. So,
Yeah. Uh, I think my parents had said that they had looked at houses out there, but they both worked like near LA, and they're like, yeah, we're not like, yeah, the houses are cheap. I mean, it's the early '90s, and like the houses were cheap out there in Riverside, but
but
who wants to drive from Riverside to LA every day and back
4 to
during rush
6 hours
hour?
in traffic every
Yeah,
day. No, thank you.
yeah. So it's like that commute would kill you, but I think if more people are working from home, then a lot of those communities would be a lot more um, better offerings since you don't need to commute. You
My
can
boss
buy.
commuted every day from San Bernardino to Pasadena, 2.5 hours each way.
Yeah, that's a lot. I knew a guy I worked with. He was a manager for a different department, and he lived in like West Hollywood, and he drove to Irvine every day.
Oh, heck no, bro.
It was like Northwest Hollywood or something, so it was like the other side of LA. It's like cool. You gotta drive all the way to the far side, and then all yeah, nah, it was ridiculous. And there were some times where he's like, "Yeah, I'm not even driving home today because I'm just getting like a hotel out here." Because like there was accidents or a fire or something, and the freeway was like, "Nope, he's not gonna get home till like midnight, so might as well just stay out here for a night, go home in the morning."
That's the
So
beauty of Texas.
yeah, um, yeah, I don't know what I want to do in terms of moving to, like, if I want to move to another state or not.
Iowa looks nice.
Iowa.
Uh,
More farm
Honest,
country.
from what I've seen, it's either Texas, Tennessee. There was a huge exodus to Arizona for another ungodly reason, but still priced out of league
Yeah,
for
but
Arizona.
fuck saying in Arizona. No offense to people who like Arizona, but I don't feel like living in, the belly of the sun for most of the year. That doesn't
And to
interest me.
live anywhere decent, you're still spending 500,000.
Yeah. And I'm gonna spend all my money on air conditioning, uh, freaking 10 months out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, no thanks.
Tennessee's awesome. I did learn in Tennessee, in Chattanooga is in Hamilton County, I believe, which is Eastern time zone. But if you go across the street into the other county, it's Central time zone.
I mean, yeah, it's where the
Like the
line is.
city is pretty much just like cut in half between the two time zones.
I mean, yeah,
So we
that's
were talking like how
that's
miserable would it
geography.
be? Like either you work on one side and you go to work an hour later than everyone else because you're home. On the flip side is when you get out of work, you come home, it's an hour after the fact versus getting up early to drive into town to be there an hour, but you get home early. So then it was the debate of would you rather wake up early and go to work earlier because you have to make up the hour, or would you rather go in late and come home late?
Well, I mean, it just depends on whether or not if you're that close. Yeah, like the official time zone might switch, but the people living there might just stick to one. You know what I mean? Like if your work is, let's say, in central, then everyone who lives a few blocks away in the other time zone technically might just set their clocks to central time just to save the headache of having to compensate the extra, the invisible hour of traveling 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I
But
think
on the flip side, because you'd have to figure
they
out if
probably
you
just
went
don't
to a
care.
restaurant, if you go to a restaurant in town, you gotta factor in closing times. You
But
gotta
it's
factor in
it's
all that
it's
stuff.
possible though that they're in different time zones, but it's possible that they all like
They
official.
don't.
They don't. They don't just have an official
They
like where this
nope.
city's
They just
in.
hey, this city's in this time zone. We're in this time zone. Because my coworker lived there, and that's how we were talking about it. And he's like, "Yeah, one night we made the mistake of going to the other town for dinner, but we didn't look at the closing time. And by the time we went to dinner, technically they should have been closed, but because there was such a big rush, they stayed open."
Okay. Yeah, I mean
It's just wild to think about.
you could, I guess, if you don't care. Um, I'm thinking though, but those are like two different cities, right? So it's just what the
Well,
county that's
it would be
split.
like Whittier and La Habra.
Yeah,
So say Whittier is central and La Habra is eastern.
yeah,
So yeah, cool. Even though you legitimately just drive across the street, you live in Whittier, you're trying to go to the Chili's on Beach and Imperial, and
yeah.
nope.
It's an hour ahead.
Mhm.
I
That's the
mean,
weirdest thing to think about.
yeah, I guess you have to just live with where you're going, and you always have to add an hour or subtract an hour if you're going one way or the other.
So I voted if I had to do that situation, I would rather go east. No, I would rather go central time zone to eastern time zone and then get stuff done and then come back to the central time zone.
Because you get an hour back.
Yeah, I would rather have to wake up at 5 to leave at 6 to get to work by 7 versus
Actually, no, you'd well,
sleeping in.
no, because when you leave at 6, it would be 7.
Well, I mean from central time zone. So I'd rather wake up at 5 so I could be on the road to be at work by 6.
Yeah, yeah,
And the work starts at 7, if that makes sense.
yeah. You'd get there by
So,
6 your home time, but
so
7 work time.
yes. So I would
Yeah,
rather do it that way. And then when you get home, hey, I got off work at, say, I get off work at 5. Okay, by the time I get home, it's
it's
4
4.
o'clock.
Yeah.
So, cool. And my coworker was like, nah, bro, I'd rather, go the other way around because I'd rather wake up at 8 and then drive to work. And, you know,
I mean, yeah, teach their own, I guess. It just
but then I
depends
was like,
on when you want the extra time.
so you get off work at 6. So we'll just say hypothetically, you get off work at 6, you're getting home at 7, but you only drove 10
Well,
minutes.
it
So,
actually doesn't matter because if you're going if you're living in one, if you it depends. I guess it just depends on. It
how it's
doesn't.
structured.
It doesn't depend on what you prefer. It depends on where you live and where you work. Because like if work starts at 7 and you're in Central and 7 Eastern, you're gonna have to leave before 6 no matter what.
Yep.
So that means you're always gonna get because you're always going to go it forward in time.
You're
If you're
basically
traveling
an
east, if
hour and a
you're
half time
it
frame.
depends if you're traveling east or if you're traveling west. But otherwise, you don't really get to decide. You only get to decide at the beginning when where you choose to move and work. But
Yeah.
if you live and work, west to east, then you're always gonna get home early. But if you work, east to west, you're always gonna get home late.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends. But a lot of that's out of your control. I mean, if your job's in one and you can't get a house in that area, then you're stuck in the opposite. But
So, moral of the story: don't live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Is all I've learned.
you know, um, that
And that
reminds
was
me
random fact of the week.
that reminds me of the whole argument of daylight saving time and how it's like
A
it
scam.
was it was like bullshit, but um there was a like a reason for it, and it was more of like energy conservation, but it was like during World War One,
Mm-hmm.
where they were trying to I think Germany started it first, where they were trying to like make change the time so that way people would like conserve energy during certain parts of the year, so that would save it saved the country in energy costs basically. For like when they're burning, um, when they're burning fuel and stuff for people to like stay up at night and whatnot. And there's that like um, not rumor, but people used to think, oh, it has to do with the farmers. But farmers, if you think about it, don't really give a shit about the time. They work from sun up to sundown. So
And they go by season, not
it
by day.
yeah, it doesn't matter what the clock says. The sun comes up this when the sun comes up. It doesn't matter if it's 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, right? And they run out of daylight when they run out of daylight. So nowadays, I mean, you have like electricity, so you can work past sundown because you can have floodlights and stuff keeping things lit so you can work. But for the most part, uh, before electricity, um, you just worked when the sun was out. So the whole like legend that it was because of farmers, like farmers don't give a shit about the clock, about jumping forward an hour. It doesn't matter. Like the seasons determine that, not an arbitrary time in freaking when did we jump? Like November and was it?
It's November and April, I think.
Yeah, like so I think
Because one year I was in Vegas at the start of when we gained the hour. So in fall, November, I was in Vegas when it happened. And then that April, when we lost the hour, I was in Vegas when it happened. So I made life happen that way.
yeah, I kind of want them to just get rid of it because there's no point.
Move to Arizona because they don't have it in Arizona.
Well,
Full
Arizona
circle right there. Look at that.
Arizona
Full
just Arizona just chooses um like not to. Arizona technically like the time zone thing is not determined I think per state. It's like determined like nationally. And so Arizona just chooses to to ignore it.
They're like, yeah, we want them.
They're like we're just not going to enforce it. We're just not going to make anyone change their clocks. Which I feel like would really, I mean, wouldn't that fuck things up for the time zone that they're in for like phones and like digital stuff that's not determined by, that's not manually set? Wouldn't that automatically switch to like, oh, it's central daylight saving and it would just automatically
No,
change
because
you?
they're in their own little like glitch spot. I don't know. I don't know how it all
I
works.
don't, I don't know if like the phone
'Cause I think they
companies,
have their own technical like time zone.
well, you think of your phone, right? It's based off the network. And the network is has time zones and stuff set. So do they have a special? Does
I
AT
think
and
they have
T
a
or
special delegation for Arizona.
do they say like, hey, if your phone is your IP is in Arizona, don't change the phone's clock, the internal clock, or does it just happen to people and they just deal with it?
I thought Arizona had its own special like quote unquote time zone. It
No, they
wasn't like a
just
real time zone, but
no, they don't have. They don't think they have their own time zone. They just don't recognize daylight saving.
they have their own like substandard.
Let's see. Arizona time zone. They're Mountain Standard Time.
Except for when it comes to daylight savings. Then they go to Pacific.
I guess, but
Or they switch to whatever one.
oh, only the Navajo Nation observes daylight saving time.
Getting
so,
weirder and weirder by the minute.
so the U.S. is divided into 6 time zones: Hawaii, Aleutian Time, Alaska, Pacific, Mountain, Central, Eastern. Um, so Alaska used to have 4 time zones, but in 1983 the government consolidated time zones into two: Hawaii Aleutian Time, which applies to the westernmost Aleutian Islands, and Alaska time for the rest of the state. Arizona time zones is Mountain Standard Time all year, most of the state, and Mountain Time observing daylight saving time on the Navajo Nation. So technically, all of Arizona observes mountain time, but whether that's mountain daylight time or mountain standard may depend on the time of year and where you are. So
Arizona just don't care.
with the exception of the people of the Navajo Nation, Arizona does not observe daylight saving time, so is on mountain standard time all year long. Arizona stopped using DST following passage of the Emergency Policy Act of 2005, which gave each state or territory. Oh, so I guess yeah, they since 2005, they have the right to opt out of daylight saving time. And Arizona opted out because the state's climate is extremely hot and extended daylight hours were not needed, since it was assumed that people prefer to do their activities in cooler evening temperatures.
Makes
But
sense.
see, that's weird because that means that they never jump an hour ahead, right? They're always technically in what we consider an hour behind, right?
Well, depending on the time of year, if it's springtime or past, California and Arizona tend to be on the same time. If it's fall and winter, Arizona's an hour ahead.
Okay. I know California was thinking about doing that, of opting out, because it didn't make a difference and it just screwed everyone up twice a year. And they say like the argument was like most people like basically we would stay the hour ahead so we would get the more daylight and we would just stick to that because people make better use of their time that way.
See, in Texas, it makes a huge difference because when winter hits, I could wake up. I wake up about 6:30, completely pitch black outside.
Yeah.
By the 4:30, sun starts to set. When I come home 6:30 at night, it's pitch black outside. It's weird.
No, I
But
mean
then again, in
that's.
the summer, I'll wake up 6 o'clock. It's daylight,
Hmm.
and then sun sets at like 9:15. And you're like, what?
Yeah, no, that's I mean that's how it is in California. Not as extreme most of the year, but when we're ahead like we are now, um, it starts getting light out. Yeah, like around 6 in the morning, 6 something, 6:20 or whatever, the sun comes out. Um, but yeah, during when we do fall back, I go to work and like the sun is barely coming out, and then I leave work and like the sun's already set. It's like dark. I'm like, cool. I
The
spent the whole
worst.
day inside. I mean, yeah, I'm like next to a window, but I got to just watch it turn dark outside before I got to leave.
I didn't get to enjoy anything.
I didn't get to enjoy any of it. But then during the summer, it's like cool. It's bright when I'm leaving for work, and it's still bright when I'm going home. And I think most people would prefer it that way because then that feels like you still have daylight, like you still have time to do things left, and it's not like cool. It's night. I might as well go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so yeah, I would totally be down if California decided to just like stop falling back and just stay where the longer daylight hours, which I heard they were trying to do, but I don't know if that all got like pushed under the rug because of the whole like election stuff that was happening and COVID. Something you've never experienced that uh, is the sun never going down, which is something you should, because it is trippy as hell.
When you were in Iceland or Greenland,
Yeah, when I was in Iceland, it was like in August, so summer, and there's a point in time that's it's not very short. It's probably only like a few weeks or something, but where the sun just stays directly above you. It just
that's
never
creepy.
moves. But then as time goes on, like it'll start to like circle and like get bigger and bigger, and then it starts like getting it like it starts circling, but then it like because it's going technically from east to west, and then as when you get closer to winter, it starts getting closer to the horizons, and then eventually it hits like winter for like 3 months or something. The sun just never comes up. It's just dark. That I've never experienced, and they say like the suicide rate and stuff goes up a lot during that time. But
That'd be wild.
when I was there in the summer, it was weird because like you don't feel tired. Everyone has like blackout curtains because you can't sleep. It looks like it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon just all the time.
That's got to be
It
wild.
is it is the trippiest when you're walking around, people are out doing things and stuff, and you're like, "What time is it?" And you look, you're like, "Oh, it's 3 a.m." And it just looks like a night, like an afternoon. It just never stops. It is the weirdest thing because you don't feel tired. You don't know unless you're looking at your watch. You don't know what time it is. Like you can't tell if it's getting late or not.
Your
And
body's just like, oh, sun's
your
out. Must
body's like,
be
"Oh,
wake
sun's
time.
sun's out. You're awake." Um, and you're and like some stuff will close um because they do have like operating hours, but a lot of places like will stay open a lot longer during that time because they kind of try to like take advantage of the daylight. Um, so a lot of people work multiple jobs just around the clock. Um, because so like a lot of things will just stay open and the crews will just shift and people will like leave that job after their workday, another crew will come in. But because the sun hasn't gone down, like people stop shopping for things and like going to restaurants and stuff, and people just like find time to sleep. But um, I remember like the one of the guys at the front desk of the hotel we were at, he had like 3 jobs, like 3 or 4 different jobs that he did every day. So he would go from just job to job to job and then like find time in between to like nap and sleep. And it's like he can only do that because one, it was summer, so there was a lot more people there, so there's more like tourists. So
Yeah,
businesses are trying to
tourism.
they're trying to make their money by staying open and just collecting whatever they can because everyone's out doing stuff. And then things kind of slow down and shut down a lot when it's winter and the sun's not out. But it is a trippy experience to just never see the sun go down. It just feels weird. Like like oh I know what time it is. I know like my internal clock when I'm at home. Like this is when I should be getting tired. This is when I wake up. This is when I sleep. But when you're there, you're like it just feels completely like alien to like not to be completely thrown off and you have no idea like why you don't feel tired when you look at the clock and it's 9 o'clock at night and the sun's straight above you still. And people are
I
like,
thought that they did a science study that, like, under conditions like that, your body will reset itself to like a 36, 38 hour day cycle.
yeah, I think it can if you're exposed to that. It will just like run longer without getting tired, but you're also kind of getting like you are getting some energy from the sun, like you're getting like vitamin D and stuff. So if you're out and you're not, I guess, probably exerting yourself too hard, like physically exhausting yourself, then I could totally see it. Just it's totally easy to just stay awake. It's not hard at all to um, not feel tired. And then when you do need to go to sleep, you have the hotels and people's houses. They all got like blackout curtains, so you shut that right, and the place is dark. And then all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I feel tired now. Like it's time to go to sleep. It's the same thing like when I put the sheet over my bird's cage. He's like, "Oh, it's time to go to sleep now." I can't see anything, so I guess I go to sleep.
Okay, good night.
Yeah, and then he falls asleep, and it's the same thing. Like we went back to the hotel, and it was freaking 1 o'clock in the morning, and we shut the curtains. We're like, "Oh, now I guess we can finally like go to sleep." And it doesn't help having like weird jet lag from being on a plane, and like it throws you off. But when you're there for like a week or two, which I think we were there for like 2 weeks, um, and yeah, you just get used to it so quick. Now, I do want to go back there during winter because I hear that like before New Year's, they have like the best fireworks displays. because they don't really have fire, like they don't have trees, and it's rains a lot, so they don't have like in California where everything's dry and dead. So they don't really have like the same fireworks laws. So I heard that, and I saw a picture of it, that like a week up going up to New Year's for 24/7, it's just fireworks in every direction. It's like
All right,
360.
bucket list added.
It's like Disneyland 360 degrees for like days. And because the sun doesn't come up, it's just 24/7 fireworks. You got nothing better to do. So like I really
Yeah.
want to go around New Year's just to see like people shooting off fireworks and like what it's like for the sun to never come up.
Most people want to go to New York
Ah,
or
fuck that.
Vegas. Nope. Iceland. Let's go.
I want to go to the far north. Dude, they had like ice cream shops on every corner. Freaking kids smoked. Like it was it was the trippiest place I've ever been.
Let's
Um,
go. I'm down.
it was really cool though. And then when I went, they still had the
Come home
Navy
with
base.
Viking bread.
Oh, dude, you could tell everyone there has Viking blood. They just look different. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. They're like white people, but I don't know. They just look like they have Viking blood. Um, dude, when we were there and the Navy base was still open, my mom made friends with someone whose husband was in the Navy, and so like we got to go onto like the Navy base, and it was just like being in the United States. Like everything was in U.S. dollars.
Hmm.
All the prices were exactly or cheaper than they are here.
Especially if you go to the PX.
Yeah, but I mean, like all the restaurants that they had, like everything was like if you went to freaking Wendy's there on the base, it was just
Hmm.
like going to Wendy's here. And everything in Iceland is more expensive because a lot of it's imported. So like gas is more expensive. Like everything's really expensive. But then you go onto the base and you're paying like American prices, but like cheaper American prices, like cheaper than it is in California. American prices. It was
Yep.
like weird. Um, and then it was cool. Like you had to drive from the city where like the main international airport is and like the capital. You have to drive like 45 minutes down like this long ass highway. And there's a few places to stop off to the side. Um, but we went to go look at like lighthouses or something, and we had to go past the Navy base, and it was early in the morning, and they were like they had like F-15s and stuff were taking off, and like F-18s were like taking off from the base, but because this road like passed between the sea and like the base, they flew like just right over your head, going out to sea to do like training or whatever. So that was cool because we got to stop. You could hear them coming, and then you could just like watch as like they blast right over your forehead and like hit you with like a shockwave. It was really cool.
Like, whoa.
It was loud, loud, loud as fuck. So um, that was really cool. But then I think they closed it down and everyone left. So I don't think they do that anymore. Um,
I get enough of an army base out here.
yeah,
And we have all the Chinook helicopters, so they'll always fly information.
we get those too. Surprisingly, there's a lot of Blackhawks and Chinooks that will fly by, heading towards what's over there. There's
Steel Beach.
I
Steel Beach has a naval base with the airfield on it.
yeah, there's that. I don't know where they're going. They're basically following the 91, going west. So I don't know where they're coming from or where they're going, but they're always like on that side of the building, traveling like along. And so you every once in a while, like not every day, but probably every maybe once a week, I actually notice. I'm like, oh, it's really loud, and I look out the window, and there'll be like a couple Chinooks or like Blackhawks.
You just wave at them.
Yeah, they're just like flying over the freeway, heading towards. I don't know. I don't. That's the thing. I don't know if they're going to the Navy base or there was also another air base, right? A small one, like a reservist base or something. So they could be
Out in the
going
desert.
there. Oh,
29 Palms.
did I ever tell you when what's the Air Force equivalent of the Blue Angels?
I don't know.
Uh, what are they called? They're called the Thunderbirds. So they're basically like the Blue Angels, but the Blue Angels are Navy and the Thunderbirds are Air Force. At my building at work, um, every like summer, the Thunderbirds do like a show out like in the I don't know where, like maybe Santa Monica or just like out in the beach somewhere. They every summer they do like some sort of air show. So the week leading up to it, they do a bunch of like practice stuff. And because my building is tall enough and you could basically see straight all the way to the ocean, they're flying like right past the building all the time and we just stand at the windows and watch them do like stunts and stuff.
That's cool.
um but yeah, so it's I don't know. There's amount of times I've been like lucky enough to actually be like near jets flying around doing stuff is kind of cool because they're really fucking loud. Um, but no, we got to do a trip. I want to do a European trip and go to like Ireland and go to like some distilleries and breweries. Go to England. Um, go have like the pub experience, eat and drink.
You just gotta hit Powerball or Mega Millions, and then
Yeah,
just take a month off to go travel.
let's go travel to Europe. I do want to visit one of my friends in Switzerland. Um, get some Swiss chocolate. Go to like Germany,
That Swiss cheese.
Swiss cheese, Swiss chocolate. Um, yeah, some of that stuff would be really cool. But I don't know.
One of these days.
I mean, financially, I could do it. Spend, um, do like, uh, take like a week off and technically like go to one country for like a few days and then fly back or whatever.
One
But
thing's just juggling work.
yeah, there's like juggling work, which for me is not as hard as you. And two, it's like the whole COVID thing. A lot of countries just have a lot of restrictions. It's just a pain in the
Mhm.
ass. So I'm not gonna do that until that's kind of gone away. Then I'll be
My
like,
boss just got back from Hawaii. Every time they went out to eat, they needed to show their anti-vax cards or their vaccination cards. They needed to give their address and provide their ID
yeah.
just to sit in the restaurant.
Well, there was that lady that had a fake vaccine card that she got arrested for. But I mean, Hawaii's not like it doesn't seem that unusual that they have that many restrictions because in general there's a lot of things you can't bring into Hawaii just because of like their sensitive ecosystem and stuff. There's a lot of rules that you can't bring certain foods or pets or whatever into Hawaii because they don't want like invasive species and all kinds of other stuff. And since they're an island, I guess they kind of it makes it more sense and makes it easier for them to be like, oh, there's a pandemic on the mainland. Yeah, we're just gonna like not let
We're
people
just
in.
gonna shut
We're
everything.
just gonna shut stuff down. Like that makes more sense to them than us in the other 48, where you could just drive across state lines. Like there, you have to like go out of your way to go there. So if
Yeah.
they want to put restrictions, I think they can. They probably realize, hey, we can enforce it a lot more than the other states can.
And if you don't like it, stay in your hotel room.
Yeah, or don't come here right now. I mean, I don't know. Did you see the fight that broke out in New York though at a
Yes.
restaurant from
The
the
lady
people
from
from
Texas. Yeah.
Texas? they started beating up the hostess at a restaurant because she told them that they have to. What was it? They needed a proof of
They need a back
vaccination
card.
or a proof of a negative COVID test. Like within that week or something, they had to have like a negative COVID test, and they started throwing fists. I'm like, geez. And then there was that restaurant in Texas that kicked that family out for wearing a mask. Um, they were both vaccinated, and their kid had a like their kid was like I think under a year or something, and the kid had like a um they
Autoimmune disorder.
yeah, but there was like something else that caused like a weakened immune system. I forgot what disorder it was, and so they just wore a mask just out of precaution. And the restaurant owners like, you're not allowed to wear a mask in my restaurant, and they kicked them out. I'm like, but I thought you guys were all like freedom of choice type of state. What happened to that?
Freedom of choice, as long as your choice is what we agree with.
As long as your choice is what I say it wanted to be. Yeah. So I'm just waiting for all this to finally blow over. Uh, I mean, it looks like we're just gonna have to wait for the virus to run its course, I guess.
It never will. We're living with
Um,
COVID for the rest of our lives.
I mean, the Spanish flu eventually did, but it took like 3 years before either you were vaccinated against it, or you died from it, or you got it and survived. But it had spikes every, like the first year was bad, and then there was some months where it went down, cases went down, and then it spiked again, and it did that for like 3 years,
Hmm.
where every so many months it would spike and then it would drop back down again, and then eventually it just, I guess, ran through all the population. I mean, it killed like a quarter of the world's population though in total. So I think COVID's probably going to do something. It's going to be like this for a while, which
And
means I'm
considering we have a lot more people now than we did during the Spanish flu,
yeah, the population's like tripled since then. At least in the US it's tripled. I think it was like a third. The I think proportionally it killed more people have died from COVID in the US than died from the Spanish flu
hmm,
as of now, because it's like over 600,000. But proportionally it
the
hasn't
Spanish
hit.
flu killed a quarter of the population of the
Yeah,
world at
yeah,
that time.
but that's because there was like, right now we have what, 330, 340 million people in the US. Back then they only had like 100 million people in the US. So, um, it killed a bigger percentage of the population. And of course, we don't learn our lessons, and so we repeat it 100 years later. Because even back then there was like not ads, I guess they're ads because they were taken out like in newspapers and stuff, but people drew like cartoons and basically took out like ads and signs against like wearing masks back then. Like there was a whole anti-masker thing back during the Spanish flu, and then like, yeah, some states were better at managing that than others, and the ones that were better at managing it had less deaths on average than the ones that just like let people do what they want. And I'm thinking, oh, you mean like places like Florida where they're like, you don't need a mask, and so everyone's going around coughing on each other and freaking exchanging fluids and
Well, look what's happening at these schools. That just tells you everything you need to know right there.
yeah. I mean, in general, the thing is, everyone knows like kids just spread disease.
Kids are walking petri dishes.
Kids are just, yeah, walking petri dishes that spread disease to everyone around them. And when your kids get sick at school, they bring it home to you. So the concept of getting sick and how like that spreads should be well known to everyone since basically the beginning of time when people first started getting sick. Um, But I don't know. People seem to want to get sick than not. I don't know. I've enjoyed not being sick for a year and a half. The last time I got sick was like November of 2019. So it's going to be almost 2 years since I've been sick, since I've had like the
Just
flu.
don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't go anywhere. I don't um, touch anything. I wear a mask when I'm out, which I'm still waiting for those razor masks to get out of like beta or whatever.
I want one.
Cause I'm like that'd be
I even
cool.
talked Rhonda into one.
Yeah, see, like they're pretty cool, and I think they came. I mean, I haven't seen if the beta ones, the like the test ones, still do it, but they had advertised that they were gonna put them in like their own like sanitizing cases and carrying cases
Hmm.
and stuff. I'm like that's really convenient. So you
Well,
go out,
basically, it's gonna be a UV case. So
yeah,
when you plug it in and close it, it just
it just
UV
fries
sanitizes.
it just fries whatever bacteria is on there, whatever viruses are on there, and then the filters are supposed to be replaceable. And of course RGB, so everyone will know
Mhm.
you're cool.
And a voice amplifier.
Yeah,
But I'm sure they're gonna allow you to hack.
of course. Um, I really wonder how that sounds though. If people are just gonna hear you breathing, or if you're just gonna sound like Darth Vader just breathing through a speaker, or if it's gonna like be able to do voice canceling and be able to determine like when you're speaking and when you're not, and turn on and
Yeah.
off. That'd be kind of cool. Um, but I haven't seen anything about that except for the people that did the trial stuff. Um, but I don't know. Some cool tech like that is what we need. I've been trying
Cool
to do
tech all
research
the way.
on. Oh, speaking of tech, I've been trying to do research on like electric trucks since the Rivian started selling to consumers.
I just don't know how that's gonna fare with $70,000 basically for a truck that has a what 350-mile range.
I think so, yeah. For the Ford one, yeah. I don't know about the Rivian truck, and then there's another brand that is making a truck too. And then
That was still some ways out though.
yeah, and then some other companies were talking about hybrid trucks. So I saw a video on a guy who's I don't know like a truck enthusiast or whatever, and they were asking him about like Ford's electric truck and some of the other trucks and like why companies haven't made an electric truck yet. Like, is it technologically more difficult or like is there a different reason why they haven't done it? And it kind of came down to he's like, yeah, there are some technological differences between making a car and a truck because a truck is meant to do things like tow and
Tall.
haul, whereas cars aren't. So you have to structurally design like the frames differently and stuff. He's like, but for the most part, the reason why they haven't done it is because trucks are in the U.S. are a cash cow.
Hmm.
Like, why mess with a good thing if you're already selling more trucks than you sell cars, and you can charge more for trucks, and you
Why
make
try to
more?
reinvent it?
Yeah, if you make more money from the sale of trucks, then why change it and then accidentally scare your client base like away from change. But
Well,
seeing,
that you factor in the mileage factor too with trucks. When you get an electric truck, you factor in all the weight that it's got to tow, you're going to get maybe 200, 250 miles per charge.
yeah, based on like a battery that's rated
That
for
is
300, 350.
nothing for a truck.
Yeah. So I think I think battery tech definitely needs to get a lot better, and I think moving away from lithium ion because that's reaching the limits of what they can squeeze out of it, and I think they
Hmm.
just need to change the chemical compounds of batteries to something else that's better at holding a charge that can handle more charge cycles. The only thing is like it's going to happen. I mean, it was the same thing with gasoline cars. People had range anxiety back then when gas cars came out because there weren't gas stations on every corner. Gas was not transported as much as it is now. Like it was a
Yeah.
lot. It was a little harder to get. But eventually the infrastructure caught up to it, the demand, and you look at the freeway system and all kinds of other shit that were made with the idea of gas powered cars traveling on them for long distances. Um, I already saw some gas stations having charging stations now. So I think they're going to jump in because they know it's coming and they're going to want to keep their business. So they're going to start offering it. It seems like gas companies are probably going to start offering both for a while until one
One takes off.
takes off, and then they're going to start downsizing their needs for gasoline and even gasoline storage. Like, you don't need to have those giant tanks underneath the gas station full of gas. Um, if not enough people are coming in for gas. I don't know what's going to happen to like classic cars and stuff though. I mean, you can still get leaded gas, right? It's just you can only get it from certain
No,
people and like
leaded gas is officially gone.
so what if your car is old enough that it uses leaded gas? Do you have to convert it?
You can pretty much use unleaded gas.
Okay.
But the way that the engines are designed and all that fun stuff, you're not going to be driving a daily driver with a leaded gas car. You're going to
No.
have modifications done to it anyways. So,
Yeah, no, I mean not like a daily driver, but I'm sure there's, like do you think of the people that drive like um at least out here you'd see those people driving like old classic cars like not quite Model T, but like just after that.
but
And
even a lot of the cars that you see in California that look like Model Ts or Model As or whatever they are, it's a kit car and it's based off of an 84 POS that somebody made.
is that how they do most of those?
It's a kit car, is what they call it.
Um,
It's just designed to look like it, but it has parts. We had a customer come in my old shop. It was a 1914, 1915 like Model T replica.
yeah.
Inside, it had the chassis of a 1980 Ford Fiesta, and it ran off of a 2005 Ford motor.
Okay.
So it's just kits.
Oh, that reminds me the show you've been watching called was it What We Do in the Shadows? It's about like it's kind of done in like a mockumentary um like follow a group of people around style. So but they're like vampires in I think like New Jersey and they're all super old. I mean, one of them is from like the old Persian Empire. He was like a general or something and but they're like living in modern day, America. They're all centuries old. And then there's like a camera crew that's like following them around and just documenting it and um it's based off a movie that like Taika Waititi was in and with one of the guys from Flight of the Conchords and then they kind of made a show off of it and but the most recent episode they find one of the characters finds his old he says it's his old jalopy and it's like a car from like maybe the early 20s or older and one of the other vampires was like what does it run on he goes that's the thing it runs on gasoline and coal and the guy's like oh a hybrid and
Oh my
there's like
god.
a big ass smokestack in the back but like it still has gas too so like it runs off both and I'm like yeah see we're in that stage right now where they're doing these weird combinations between batteries and gas cars
They'll never take
or
off.
or hydrogen fuel cell, which I think is like yeah, you can make fuel out of it, but there's a reason why we don't use hydrogen for fuel because of the Hindenburg. Like it's a perfect example that hydrogen's highly explosive and flammable. It's like yeah, it's clean burning. You get water when you burn hydrogen.
But you run the risk of turning your car into a bomb.
Yes. And to transport it, you run the risk of everything else turning into a bomb.
Mhm.
So fuck that. Um, which my company has a fuel cell, but you can only buy it in California. I know you can only lease it in California. I don't think you can even buy them. And there's only like so many hydrogen fuel cell like stations to fill up on. So it makes no sense to like get one if you don't have a station that can fill it up. Which I think like if you're having, which I heard the UK is doing, all new homes. I don't know if they passed it, but all new homes were supposed to have um, like charging like infrastructure built into them.
Nice.
So that way, if people get electric cars, there's a
Charger for that
like a
too.
universal like charging thing that whatever car you have, you can plug an adapter in and like it would be built into the home so you can charge your cars. So I'm like that makes sense. I mean, it's the same thing like with California having that law saying all new buildings, homes, apartments, they all need to have solar panels.
Yep.
So I don't know if you turn like Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, you put solar panels and like small batteries in every home. You just turn it into a microgrid, and you would save money on fossil fuels.
Well, that leaves us some food for thought for next week.
Yeah,
Fossil fuels, electric. Where's the world going? And why am I so excited for this VWID Life that's coming out?
that we have to talk about next time. I'll have to put that in the notes.
We will. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun, but I really have to pee. And I'm looking at the clock instead of just leaving and then coming back and saying goodbye. I'd rather just say goodbye tonight.
Yep.
Toodles.
See ya, everybody.